I think we forget sometimes how long Septicflesh has been around, how long that they have been a band. The fact that they started releasing albums in the 1990s and they're still going strong here in 2017 with the release of their brand new album Codex Omega comes 3 years after Titan, which was a disc that certainly did move some mountains and continued to help them gain further acclaim. However, Septicflesh at this point is starting to become a band whose playbook is starting to become pretty well known. Perhaps it's the fact that it's a playbook that is being sort of emulated a little bit by other groups, where it's no longer something that's uniquely just theirs, or, something that only a handful of bands have been taking part in, but now it's one that has become almost its own genre of metal. But what do you call it? Do you call it blackened symphonic death metal, or symphonic black metal? Do you put them akin to other groups such as Graveworm, either that, or do you put them more closely affiliated to other names? Please put those names in the comments if you indeed feel that way. Is Flesh God Apocalypse among them? But this is a band with this album that starts off with a track such as Dante's Inferno, 5.5 minutes, that really does showcase that playbook very well. And while this is one of the strengths that brings Septicflesh to the dinner table and also allows them to get one of the bigger cuts of chicken, it's also something that, if you have been listening to Septicflesh for a long time, will feel just like that. Run-of-the-mill, part of the playbook. And even though Dante's Inferno shines forward as a very good opening representation to what Codex Omega really has to offer, it's something that whenever you examine their long-term discography feels like it falls just a little bit toward the average or only slightly above average notion. And it's something that continues with Third Testament and even Portrait of a Headless Man. This is something that actually only starts to really ramp itself up with the martyr/enemy of truth duality that takes place within tracks 4 and 5. It seems like right here is where they start to discover a little bit of melody, not to mention where the storytelling and any arcs that might be present start to really showcase themselves with a little bit more panache. It starts to jut out, and the overall element of the symphonic backing actually adds that melody that perhaps causes some of this chaos that you hear, some of this sonic destruction. It gives it a little bit more form, as opposed to feeling like it's a little bit listless, either that or perhaps could have used a little bit more sculpting. With Martyr and Enemy of Truth, things start to really get rolling, but it's not until you get into Dark Art where the real, I guess, genius of Septicflesh starts to expose itself. That's whenever the melody comes full circle. That's whenever you get that track that feels like it is bigger than just about anything else on this disc. It's almost like an apt introductory work for folks that want to get into this band. It kind of makes it a little bit accessible, but not in that way where it sounds like a Linkin Park song or something like that. Instead, it gives you a little bit of that clarity, almost having some of those symphonic elements you would hear in a Cradle of Filth song. Once again, Flesh God Apocalypse might be another band that you might use, but if you've never heard of Septicflesh before, and you listen to Dark Art, you're immediately going to feel very welcomed by this. It has a definite tone that feels embracing, especially if you're already parlaying into extreme metal a little bit. And the second half of this album is able to maintain that basic themology. Whenever we get right into our Church Below the Sea, and then even in the Faceless Queen, some of those elements amplify and really resonate a little bit further. While they may not have the same strength and power as Dark Art, they certainly do their best to really keep pace, and in doing so, create a nice little trilogy of songs right before we get into the Gospels of Fear, and then finally to Trinity. Trinity is a song that starts off with a lot of promise, but ends a little bit kind of deft. It doesn't have a lot of motion and feels like it really leaves a little bit too soon. It's a song that maybe could have really benefited from an extra guitar solo, either that or a little bit of a slowdown that gave it a little bit of atmospheric depth right upon its departure from this album. I'm not definitely one that is going to sit here and say that every album needs to have a minute-long fade-out where there's just ridiculous shredding going on or anything of that variety, but this is just a track that feels like it was missing a little something at the end. Its abruptness didn't actually add to its character or its flavor, it actually hurt it. So where are we really at with Septicflesh, and where is Septicflesh at with Codex Omega? Well, this is an album that does have some very good elements to it, but whenever you examine it as a whole, it feels like it's missing a little something. It has that same charm, it has that same energy, and it definitely feels like the band used the 3 years to craft an album that at least is very listenable and has a fantastic sort of overall arc to it, should I say. but it just feels like there's something that's just not there. Maybe it's a lacking of a forthwith exploration. Perhaps it's one that just feels like it's kind of just trying to keep pace with Titan instead of superseding it. I don't know. It's just weird, and it's just an album that feels like there's just something that needs to be amped up a little bit in order to make it great. Maybe the songwriting was just not quite as crisp as we've heard on a couple of albums in the past. Overall, this album is a 16 out of 30, which may actually be seen as an insult to many folks. But this is an album that I feel still should be explored by a lot of individuals, and for a lot of you that do, it's going to blow your mind. Especially if this is your first time checking out a group like Septicflesh, it's going to be something that completely opens your eyes as well as doors to a brand new place where heavy metal lives. And that's a good thing. So if the 16 troubles you into not wanting to check it out, well then you're the problem. You actually should still check this album out. But listening and reviewing Septicflesh albums in the past has really been what has led me to this conclusion. And if I'm wrong, or if I'm a bastard, then so be it. It's nothing that's new, and I've been called a lot worse by a lot better people. But I want to know what you think about Septicflesh and their new album, Codex Omega. Let me know in the comments below. I'm CoverKillerNation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.